Hey guys, PB here from the Home Automation Project. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up voice assistant in Home Assistant using Wyoming services, Whisper and Piper. I'm going to show you two methods to do this. The simple method, which is adding them as add-ons in Home Assistant on the same hardware as Home Assistant resides on. And the second method is how you can set them up as an independent Docker services, which you can potentially put in a separate, more powerful machine for running the local AI services. Along the way, I'm going to give you some useful tips on how you can optimize your setup to get the best out of it. This is just part one of my own new series that I'm starting, which will be all around local AI and local voice assistant. I'm going to do some very fun and interesting projects in this series. For example, creating your own voice satellite, cloning your voice as the voice of the voice assistant, and also setting up local AI server using open source large language models such as Llama or other models which are more tuned to home automation, as well as experimenting with some advanced projects such as creating your own personal voice assistant using both voice and camera to make the assistant understand your commands and also respond to your commands. So there's going to be a lot of action-packed stuff coming up in the next few weeks, so do stay tuned for that. I would definitely take time out in between the series to drop the videos on some of the requests that I've done in the comment section, so keep your eye out for more such exciting videos. So without further ado, let's get started. So today we're going to talk about voice assistant, running your local voice assistant in Home Assistant. So this is a pretty interesting topic, but there are certain concepts that we need to discuss before I jump into the actual configuration. So in the world of voice assistant, there are certain elements that are important. So the first thing that you need to know about is something called a wake word. So you ideally need a trigger and a wake word for the assistant to start listening to the commands. Otherwise, obviously, it will continuously pick up everything that you say and it won't know when to respond. So as an example, in the Amazon ecosystem, you use the wake word Alexa. So similarly, for Home Assistant, there are some pre-configured wake words, which an example of that is OK Nabu. So there are other such a few wake words that are available in Home Assistant, and they have been pre-trained so that they understand that they are acting as that phrase is acting as a wake word. You can set up and train your own custom wake words, and I will in the subsequent video I will show you how to do that. It's a bit more advanced topic, something which I don't want to cover in the very first video, of course. So let me get my thing ready. So when we talk about let's draw this diagram. So when we talk about wake words, so the concept is that there should be a device which is continuously listening for this wake word to be able to trigger commands on the Home Assistant server. So let's say this is your Home Assistant server, right? And you have a satellite device on here. Ideally it should be something like a microphone. So let's say you have a microphone here on some kind of device which might be also capable of a speaker. It could be the same device or it could be two different devices, but it's important to understand there should be like a service running on this behind this microphone on this hardware, which is listening to your wake word, right? And it is able to detect that phrase as separate from everything else that you're saying. Now the current default implementation in Home Assistant works in a way in which it actually continuously streams the audio, and the actual understanding or the trigger of the wake word is done on the server itself. Obviously this is not an efficient model. Ideally what you would not want to do is you would want a local satellite kind of device which listens and detects the wake word locally, and only when the wake word is received, that is when it will go and invoke a command on Home Assistant. In a subsequent video I'm going to show you how you can set up these satellite listening devices, which is using something called Respeaker Lite, but again that is out of scope of this video. One thing to note is that since it is something in this model of wake word detection is actually happening on the server, the mic that we're going to use for this video is going to be physically connected with a port on the hardware device of your Home Assistant server, which means you can't carry it with you as a remote server. কি হলো তিনটে জিনিস চালিয়ে রেখেছি আমি কি করে থামবো হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে কেন ঠিক নেই So we need to connect this mic directly plug it into the physical device. In my case it is a mini PC, so I'm going to plug in my mic into the USB port of the mini PC. Similarly, the speaker also needs to be connected to a device which the Home Assistant server access to for able to reply to the command through voice, and I'm in my case I will probably plug it into the hardware device, but the speaker need not necessarily be plugged into the Home Assistant server. It could be plugged into a machine to which the Home Assistant server has access to. I will show you an example of how you can stream the output or the response to that server. Right, coming back to the services that you would need to run. So once you say the wake word, it's a speech, but the server doesn't understand speech directly. It needs something in text format. So that's where our first service comes into play. Actually the second service, because your first service is your wake word service, and the second service is something we're going to use is called a whisper. This is a speech to something called whisper. So this is your speech to text STD service. Actually the one which is available as an add-on in Home Assistant is something which is built on faster whisper, which is a more optimized but less like it takes less space, but is very well optimized for detecting speech, converting speech to text. So once the wake word is detected, then it spits out a text which is your command, and it goes to the Home Assistant server. Now on the server we have a Home Assistant AI service now, and that is one because what we say is not necessarily going to be in a strict structure format. Now Home Assistant application will ideally only understand some certain sets of instruction which it is programmed for, but what we are saying is something comes under the category of natural language, so it's not something which the server can understand or can be programmed for. But what we have is an AI here, artificial intelligence service, and this is the one which is going to process this command and try to understand what is the most or best response to it. It has been pre-trained again with data sets and with specific system commands, so that it tries to give an answer which is relevant in the context of Home Assistant. The topic of how AI works and how context and tokens and embeddings work, it's a very vast topic. I might make future videos around some of those concepts specific to how we can utilize those concepts in the world of home automation, but for this video again it's out of scope, but it suffices for us to understand that there needs to be service configured, and we can also replace the way the voice assistant setup is done in Home Assistant. We can replace this with our own local service if you wanted to. As an example, we can use a service called Llama 3.1, let's say, which is an open source model, and this can be used to replace this default Home Assistant AI service. In my subsequent video I'm going to show you this as well, and how you can set up your local Llama environment in a Docker and use this service as a AI service instead of your Home Assistant service. Bear in mind, this service is not going to be performing that well, and in my tests it is very much the case, because this is not specifically tuned for the Home Assistant scenarios or home automation scenarios. So your mileage may vary, but it's a bit weird experience with this. But again, as a concept, it's a good idea to understand how to do these as a project, and then maybe in future if you get hands on a really good, smart and perfectly optimized model which is open source, you could easily then replace this model with that one and plug it in, and you get your local server running. The reason you would probably want to do this is most likely going to be security, so that you don't want your all your household devices to be controlled by something which is out there on the web or on the cloud. You probably want something which is local to control your devices within your house, especially if you are planning to share something like your locks or door locks or your camera streams for person detection. Definitely local AI would be the way to go, but it's not at this moment, it's not there yet, because you do need a significant processing power for these kind of AIs to work. But I'm going to show you some concepts around these so that in future we are prepared to utilize opportunities that present itself. Right, so once the speech to text happens, the AI has formulated a response. It is going to maybe the command could be something like direct, like something like switch on this light, or the command could be like, I'm in the office and it is dark here, can you help me? So that's your true natural language processing, and that's where the power of AI and voice assistant comes into picture. Now once it has found it has created the response, it again spits out the response in text, but we want to hear it interact with us like in a voice, like a human assistant. So what we need is another service called Piper. Again, this is a TTS service, and you should be able to use other TTS services. Piper is something which is again recommended and comes as an add-on right now with Home Assistant, but I have already set up mine with another TTS service, specifically a service which is open source but also is very good at translating to a different language, and that one is working well as well. So you can replace this with your own TTS service if you want. I'm going to show you how to configure all of these, apart from configuring them as an add-on in Home Assistant, how to configure them in their own independent Dockers, and then how you can then use a different service if you want in that Docker to process your voice assistant pipeline. So once it goes to Piper, Piper is going to output it as a voice back and as basically as audio, and this audio will need to be redirected to the speaker where you want to hear it. Now this that output that comes, it can only, so it depends on what voice you choose, but there's a limited set of voices that are currently available in Piper. But there's an excellent tutorial out there how you can train your, even you can clone your own voice and you can make it speak in your voice as close as possible in today's AI world. It is a very interesting topic. I'm planning to cover that as well in my future videos, so hopefully that should give you some exciting projects to work on. So once it's and that's your entire pipeline. So for this to work, we will configure something called wake word, we'll configure whisper, we're going to configure Piper, and I'm going to show you how to set up your mic and your speaker, and sample automation which will show you how you can use a different TTS speaker, not necessarily one which needs to be attached to your Home Assistant physical device. And one last thing we will need to use is something called assist microphone. This piece of software basically is used to stream the input that is coming to the mic as to the whisper service. So you could actually write your own Python program, for example, to do this, but it's again an advanced topic. I'm going to again cover it in one of my more advanced videos on this topic, but for this video we're going to just use this add-on called assist microphone to capture the input from the mic, and also I'm going to use it for outputting to the speaker. So that's your service number 5. So we need 1, 2, 3. Actually that's your service number 4. So we need 1, 2, 3 and 4 services to be configured, and the Home Assistant AI is the number 5, but that's kind of configured, like it's inbuilt into Home Assistant now, so we can just directly use it. So I hope this concept clarifies that and when I do the setup, it's very easy for you to understand why we are why each of the services that we are configuring and what role it plays in the pipeline of voice assistant. So let's go to head over to my PC and let's configure Home Assistant now. Okay, so I'm on my Home Assistant page, and let's for the voice assistant to get working, the first thing we need to do is we need to install a few add-ons. So let's go to add-ons, and on the add-on store, the first thing that we'll need to install is microphone. So assist microphone. So if you search for assist microphone, you will see this option here, and hit install, and give it a few minutes for the installation to happen. Okay, so the installation is done. First thing, one thing we need to do is we need to go to this configuration, and I need to select the input and the output. So as you can see here, I've got a microphone connected as well as a USB speaker connected to my Home Assistant hardware, which is an Intel. So I have this cheap $30-40 mic, which is a USB mic, and I have this around $20 worth of this cheap speaker as well for this test. Now that's all that I need for this setup. And here as you can see, there are two files, the awake WAV file and the done WAV file. These are the default sounds that the speaker produces when it detects a wake word and when it stops detecting the command. So that's pretty helpful. And you can hit save once we have selected this, and then we can start the service. Right, the service is started. Just double check in the configuration that your speaker mic setting is set. These defaults I have only used defaults for these values. I've never had to tweak with them. Tweak these values here, but if you need some, you can check out the documentation if you need to understand what these are. They're pretty simple inputs. Next one we need to install is Whisper. Right, so search Whisper and then hit install. This might take a little bit longer because by default it installs the Tiny Int 8 model, and it needs to download the model to your Home Assistant server, so it'll take a little while to download and install that. Okay, so as you can see, the installation is completed. For the configuration, you can check out the models that are available here. If you have better hardware for your Home Assistant server, you can go ahead and download some of the higher models like the medium or the large, and you can check out the details of these models on the Hugging Face website. And for the purpose of this setup that I'm going to do for the video, I'll stick to Tiny Int 8 for now. In future video, I'm going to show you how you can use your own local AI models, such as Llama 3.1, and we can look at some of the more advanced models then. So there's nothing that we need to change here unless you want to change the model. So we can go and hit the start. The service has started now. So next up, let's search for Piper add-on and hit install. Again, this will download a default voice when you install Piper, which is the voice model basically, which is I think it's medium Lesac model, which is more tuned for US English or UK English voices. But if you want to use a different voice, you can do that. So there are a few things you can do. You can go to their website and download a different voice if you want, or you can even train the Piper system with your own voice, so you can clone your voice. So this is an interesting topic. I'm going to cover it in another one of the future videos, where we're going to see how we can clone our own voice and allow the voice assistant to use that voice to respond. Alright, so in terms of configuration, as you can see, there's this default voice which is selected. Voice model, you can go for this is a medium quality model. You can go for a high quality model if you want. Again, it's a trade-off of performance and space versus speed of the voice assistant pipeline. The default for me is pretty okay, so I'll stick with it. None of these values I've had required to change, so I will leave them default. Again, if you want to understand what these values are, you can go to the documentation of Piper and figure it out, and it's not too complex. And let's hit these toggles now and hit start. Right, so the server is started now. The last add-on that we need to download is Open Wake Word. That's it, install. Okay, so again, this one has got installed. If you go to configuration, there's not much here to configure. You can leave the defaults as they are, and I'll just switch on the toggles and hit start. Yep. Right, so now if we go back to our add-ons page, let's go to settings, add-ons. You should see the 4 add-ons that we need are now also installed. So you have got the assist microphone, whisper, you've got piper, and you have got open wake word here. Yeah, so now the next step, let's go to devices and services. And if you see here, you will see that they are all automatically detected. So the wireming protocol is a native now a native integration in Home Assistant, and it automatically detects the services. So we can just straight away go and hit configure, and it's very quick and easy. The microphone, I'll choose the areas office and hit finish. For the open wake word, just hit submit and finish. And for piper, hit submit and finish, and then whisper. Right now, if you see, you will see this entry here for wireming protocol, and you have this one service for microphone, and you've got these as running services now. So if you go to the microphone setup, so one thing, so this button kind of shows whether there is a assist listening is in progress or not. Again, here I am not required to tinker with these. I earlier muted the I had muted this integration when I had it earlier, so that's why it's showing as mute. But let's ensure that this is unmute. And the other thing we need to check is that the assistant, if you have got multiple assistant, so as you can see right now it's setting as preferred. Once we add our own voice assistant pipeline, make sure that you come here and select it, because by default otherwise it might select the other assistant. Yeah, so we'll do that. So let's now go ahead and set up the assistant. So we'll go to settings, voice assistant, and I'll just say add assistant. Let's call it like the default assistant. Yeah, and the language will be English. If you select a different language here, you need to make sure that you have the Whisper and the Piper model which supports that other language, otherwise it may not work. Similarly, the conversation engine, the only conversation engine we have is the default conversation engine, which is Home Assistant. In the future video, I'm going to show you how you can set up your own local AI as a conversation agent, and we can use various models in place of this to act as a conversation agent. The speech to text is going to be the Whisper, which shows up as faster Whisper, because that is the service which is packaged in the add-on. Again, the language, I'll leave it as English. And in terms of the text to speech, I'm going to select Piper. There are a few others which show up because I have done some other setup for some other projects, but I'm going to select Piper for this video. Voice, I might switch to medium voice. You can leave it as low as well, it works pretty good. And the last thing you need to select is the open wake word, and the wake word I'm going to select for this project is Hey Jarvis. Right? And I will hit create. Right, so I've got these two assist pipeline. As I mentioned, need to go back to the devices and services, and then go to the microphone assist service. Make sure you select the default assistant as your service, so that it detects the wake word from this service and not the other one. Right, now that we have done the setup, ideally it should work, but before we trigger the voice assistant, what we need to do is ensure that we pass certain devices to the AI, so that they can actually respond to our queries correctly. So ideally you would probably want to pass all the entities, but for our project here, test project here, I'm going to pass two entities that I have. One is a test switch, and the other thing that I have here is a smart light. So I'm going to hit expose to entities. So I have the smart ambient light, for which I've given the alias a smart light, and that's this light here. Let me show you like this. Yeah, this is the one. So let's try and control this using the voice assistant. So for that, let's go to the default assistant, and before I do that, let me double check that unmute this. Okay, so now let's go to voice assistant, default assistant, and using the triple dot at the top menu here, we can go to the debug mode, and I'll try and speak into the speaker now. Hey Jarvis, turn on smart light. Hey Jarvis, turn on smart light. Hey Jarvis, turn off smart light. So there you go. Your assistant, the voice assistant, is working perfectly fine, and here you can see the raw data transfer, and you can even play the audio out of the computer speaker if you want. So that's the demonstration for that the voice assistant working fine with the setup using add-ons. Now one last thing on this setup is the volume of the speaker. So when I first connected this speaker of mine to Home Assistant, it just blew out my ears because it was too loud. So I had to adjust this, and there's a command you need to use on the terminal of Home Assistant. So if you go to the terminal here, and this is an add-on which you can install from the hack store. Sorry, it's an add-on which you can install from the add-on store. So here you need to run the command HA audio info. Right, so this gives you certain index values, like here it says index 1 is your microphone. Similarly, if you go so this is the volume here of the output that I have, which is this US analog stereo, and the index for this is 0. So this index value and this 0.748 is like 75% loudness. So if I want to change it, I need to run this following command. So to change this to 50%, I'll change the command to 50, and the index value is 0 for the speaker, USB speaker, and hit enter. Command completed successfully, which means the speaker is going to be a little less loud. Next, let's go and set up these services as containers, Docker containers, on a different machine. And in my case, I'm just going to use a different virtual container on the same Proxmox machine, but you can do the same on a different machine and access it through the IP address. So before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to uninstall the Piper and Whisper from add-on here. So let me go here to the Wyoming protocol, and I'm going to delete this integration as well as the Piper integration. So I'm going to I've deleted both the Piper and the Whisper integration, and I'm going to also go to the add-on section, and I'm going to stop the servers, just so that there's no confusion on which version of Whisper and Piper we are using. So stop. Right, so both of them are now stopped, and I've removed the integration. The assist microphone we need to keep the same, and the open wake word needs to stay on the Home Assistant server itself, because as I mentioned earlier, the wake word detection is done on the server, not on the satellite speaker. Later on in one of my videos, when I show you how to create a satellite speaker using ReSpeaker Lite, that is when we can install our own micro wake word or wake word on the device for detection and processing on the device. So right, let's head over to the Proxmox console, and let's set up the services. Okay, so I'm on my Proxmox machine here, and I'm going to set up Ubuntu container first. So to do that, I'm going to use the create cd button here, and let me put the container as ID as 999, hostname as wyoming.local, and password, I'm just going to give it a password, then hit next. And I'm going to use my pre-downloaded image for Ubuntu 22.04. I've shown you in one of my previous videos around Frigate that how you can set up the containers in detail, so you can refer those with the video if you need to. I'll allocate this as 10 GB space because this is going to be my test machine, but ideally, because we're going to download models, Whisper and Piper models, if you are going to make this a production machine, you should give it more space than this. and I'm going to give it the all 4 CPUs, and then memory I'm going to give it 8 GB, and then I'm going to keep the static the IPv4 as static as DHCP and leave the IPv6 static. So basically I disable the IPv6, and that's it. I will finish and give it a couple of minutes for it to get started. There it goes. So it's set up now, and I'm going to hit start. So it has started. So let's log in. Okay, so next we need to do the mandatory updates to the container. So we'll do update ampersand apt upgrade -y and hit enter. That should take care of any out-of-date software applications in this container. While the container is getting updated, let's have a look at the GitHub. So this is the Wyoming GitHub, where the Wyoming add-ons under Raspi. So Raspi is official creator of these add-ons, and also they maintain more. So if you go to the GitHub, you can see they have been doing some great and amazing work on the world of voice assistant. So they have more optimized models. In my future videos, I mean to try them out. So there are really some amazing models. I've already played around with some of them, such as I've used a different TTS service, which is able to convert translate languages while I'm using it as a voice assistant. So it's a pretty interesting project. I'm going to make a video on that as well. And then there are even faster and better versions of Whisper, or Fox of Whisper, which has been created by some other people as well in the community. So I'm going to explore all of this. This is going to be an interesting series of videos, and I guess this is something which is here to stay, so it is going to be a nice journey as well. I want to learn as I go along with you guys, trying to create useful and meaningful projects. So that would be an interesting journey. So under this you will see these few add-ons. Micro Wake Word is a lighter version of Wake Word, which can be used on satellite devices. As I mentioned before, Snowboy is used to train or clone voices. It can be used for training or cloning voices. Again, deserves a video of its own. So for this video, we are just going to focus on Whisper and Piper containers, and all the commands are available here. You can find them in Docker Hub as well. So let's go and see. Okay, the setup is still going on. Cool. So the setup is now completed. So let's install docker.io now. Apt install -y docker.io, enter. Yeah, that should install Docker for us. Anytime, if you find these videos useful, I would appreciate it if you can hit the like button, and also don't forget to subscribe. That would be a very nice way for you to show the support for me, so that I can continue to make these videos for you guys. Right, so Docker is installed now. So let's go head over to the GitHub, and let's run our first command, which is the command to install Whisper as a Docker. So first paste the command, but don't hit enter yet. So the few things you need to note is the language here. Obviously I'm going for English, but if you are planning to use some other language, you can change the language here, and also the model. So I am defaulting to the Tiny Int 8 model for now, because that's good enough for the demo. But I've got all the models that I've shown in before, the medium, large. You can try them out if you have the hardware for it. For the Intel NUC I'm running will probably die if I tried any of the larger models. But there's this one which is the faster distal Whisper. I have tried that on my other PC, which is better for these models, and it works really good. So you can try that. And then you have this image, which is the Wyoming Whisper, which is what we want. And then you have the volume. Right, so for the volume, what I'm going to do is, before I run this, I'm going to just create a local directory. So let me see. I'm going to go to my home directory, and I'm going to create a directory called Wyoming. And now after I paste this, I'm going to switch, I'm going to map the volume to this directory I just created. So I'm going to put it as home/Wyoming, and I'm going to, this is the port 1030 default port. I'll leave it like that. The only thing I'll add here is the ITT and the name as Whisper, so that I can recognize it in the Docker tasks, on Docker jobs. So that's it, and hit enter. That should download the Whisper image and install it. Bear in mind, it's also going to download the model, so it's going to take a little bit longer for this to complete. So yeah, just have a sip of coffee or whatever, and come back once it's done. Okay, so now the Whisper Docker has been installed, so we can check it by running the docker ps command. So you can see the Wyoming Whisper service is up and running. Similarly, let's do the setup for Piper. And again, this is the voice file that gets downloaded by default. You can change it. You can again refer to the section where I showed you like what are the voices that are available, and you can find them on Hugging Face. And I'm going to just change the volume here to the same directory, which is the /home/Wyoming, and I'll leave the port default 10200. Just put the make it a daemon with the D parameter and the name as Wyoming. Piper, right, and hit enter. Again, it's going to download the model along with the voice file. It's going to set it up. This should be a bit quicker than Whisper, but it's going to take some time. So again, run the command docker ps, and you can see both the services up and running. So let's go head back to our Home Assistant. One last thing, you need to check the IP address of your container, and you need to access these services using the IP address of your container. Right, so I'm back on my Home Assistant instance, and here what we need to go is we need to go to the device and services, and click on add integration and search for Whisper, and then click OK, and then give the IP address of the container and the Whisper, the port, which is 1030 by default, and hit submit, and it has detected the service. Similarly, look for Piper and click OK, then give the IP address, and the port by default is 10200. Submit, finish. Now if you go here, so you can see the faster Whisper and Piper has come up. What I would suggest is just renaming them, which I do usually, just avoid some confusion. Let's rename both of them as remote and hit OK. So now we have the remote services. So next, go to Voice Assistant, find our assistant that we were using earlier, and yeah, it's hard to tell whether we have switched the service, obviously. So the other thing we can do is we can go to Device and Services. In the protocol, we can go to the entity Piper, and we can just rename it as remote Piper date, and similarly we can go to the Whisper entity and rename it as remote Whisper update. So now we have updated the name of the entities as well. So it should update ideally show as an updated name in the Voice Assistant. So yeah, you can see I'm using the remote Whisper and the remote Piper. And one last thing, we need to go to the microphone service and check that the default assistant is still set. In case you set up a different assistant to test, remember to switch it. But for my scene, I have just used the same voice assistant pipeline, so I don't need to do anything there. So coming back to the assistant, I'm going to change the wake word to okay Nabu and update, and let's go and debug, and let's try that again. So I'm going to hold the lamp here. Okay Nabu, turn on smart light. Okay Nabu, turn off smart light. So already I can see that the response is a little better and smoother in this case, and the time taken is also a little bit better. But obviously we upgrade the hardware and give it and isolate the service as well in their own containers, I've seen the performance actually improves a lot. The only catch here is they have to be on the same network, so they're using my LAN. So you have to make sure that the LAN is the speed over the LAN is good enough, but apart from that it works pretty fine. And you can even see the raw text here if you want to use it in any of your automations. As such, you can do that. One last thing, if you want to test out your TTS service, so let's say you want to configure a new service and you want to test it out, you can do it very simply by going to developer tools, actions, and you can use this tts.speak. And in my case, what I've done is I've got the browser mode hacks installation done, so I can detect the browser, which is my Safari on this machine. I've registered that browser, so now I can use this itself as a sound device. But if you have something else like a HomePod Mini or something, you can use that as well. And you can give this simple command, and you can play. This one I was trying with the Google Translate, but for testing it with Piper, we need to just change the language to ENUS, and then we just need to use the Piper service. So you can see remote Piper here, and we can hit action. That will be all for today's video. Hope you enjoyed this video. Do stick around for more such exciting videos around local voice assistant and local AI. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can configure your own voice at Lite using Respeaker Lite, which is going to be another fun project. If you would like to see more such videos, do not forget to hit the subscribe button. So I will see you soon in the next video. Till then, stay safe and stay connected.